Now joining me, Kara Eastman. She is running in Nebraska's 2nd district, and I get emails from her primary opponent all the time. So this should be a really interesting conversation. Kara, welcome to the Young Turks Network and to Rebel headquarters in specific.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. So you've got, Don Bacon is the Republican that's in that seat, but before that, you've got a primary opponent, Brad Ashford. And so this is interesting. I don't know how Brad got my email, but I get nonstop email solicitations from him. And I don't know who he is, so I'm always like, So it's a Democratic primary. These are always a little uncomfortable, but who is he and why should we vote for you, Kara, instead of him?
Well, he was the only congressperson, Democratic incumbent, to lose in 2016. So that's one of the things that he is. He was in the Congress for one term. Prior to that, he was in the Nebraska state legislature. But I am a lifelong Democrat and running because I am feeling a sense of desperation for our country and in particular our children. I'm a social worker by trade and think that we could use a real Democrat to represent this district.
So some have characterized him as a blue dog Democrat. Is that fair?
I think he actually holds that designation, that he is one of the blue dog Democrats.
So those are the more conservative Democrats, and he's raised a good amount of money because he was in Congress before. But Kara, so have you. How much you've raised? $320,000.
I think we're over 350 right now, and
Wow.
Those are all from individual donors.
So do you take corporate PAC money?
No, we don't.
$350,000 for a congressional district in Nebraska. Excellent job raising money. Wonderful.
Thank you.
All from small donations, endorsed by the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. So we know you're really progressive. So that's great. So let's talk about why you wanted to get into politics in the first place, and then we'll talk about what you did before that.
Okay. Well, I actually made the decision to run because of my mom. I was raised by a single mom, and I'm an only child. And in 2016, my mother was diagnosed with cancer for the 5th time. And she lived in Florida, I live in Omaha. And we were talking about her medical bills, and in particular, her prescription drugs that she, in passing, told me that her doctor wanted her to take a pill that was $2,500 for one pill. And I had to stop and say, "Are you kidding? How could a pill be $2,500? And she said, "Well, that's in addition to the $800 that I'm already paying in prescription drugs." And again, I had to stop and say, "Wait, you have Medicare. How is this possible that you're paying this much?" And in this time where we're talking about repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act, it appeared to me that we weren't really talking about people or hearing about the impact that these policies have on people like my mom. And without that pill, because she wasn't afford to take it, and I'm a social worker, my husband's an academic, we weren't afford to pay for $2,500 for a pill. My mother wasn't able to leave the house until she passed away 6 months ago. So that meant she wasn't able to move to Omaha, which I wanted her to do so I could help take care of her. She wasn't able to be there for the kickoff of my congressional campaign event, and she wasn't able to see her granddaughter's last art show that she did. And my mother was an artist, and my daughter's following in her footsteps. So it just seemed like we need some different kind of dialogue, and we need people who are actually going to represent people in Congress.
Okay, that's so interesting. I really want to stay on that. So $2,500 pill is unreal for any average American. How often would she have had to take that pill if she could afford it?
The pill was for a condition that she had called ulcerative colitis. And the idea was that she would take this pill once, and then they would see how she did with it. But again, she wasn't able to afford that pill. And we looked into alternatives, and we called the drug companies, we called everybody. And there wasn't really a solution other than paying this outrageous cost, which just on principle, my mother wasn't going to do anyway.
And do you have any idea, and I don't know that you do, how much a pill like that might cost in a different country? because oftentimes you can get it much, much cheaper in other places, and they jack up the prices here because they've captured our government.
Right. I don't know, but I've heard from a lot of people in the district who say that they've considered going to Canada to get their prescription drugs because they're in similar situations to my mom.
So if you get into Congress, how do you put an end to this? Because right now the drug companies are the #1 donors to politicians in the country, and we're not even allowed to negotiate drug prices with them, so we can't use the leverage of the government. And Bush agreed to it, but so did Obama. So how do we end this madness?
Well, I'm a proponent of the Expanded Medicare for All Act because we actually can afford that, and that would solve the problem, right? But before that, we do need to be forcing drug companies to negotiate. We have this ability within the VA system, and this is something that we need to be thinking about because I'm not exactly sure why we're allowing the drug companies to have such outsized influence when people are just not able to afford it. I mean, it's crazy that you'd have to choose between paying for a drug like that and your own life, and it's immoral.
So, the right wing being paid off by these drug companies claim, oh, the government would do death panels, or the government has bureaucracy, or you'd have to wait. Well, the insurance companies have bureaucracies, and your mom couldn't even travel because of this, and it's also a death panel. So it's maddening that they do that propaganda and get away with it. Anyway, I do want to ask you about something you did before you got into politics, Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance. What was that, or what is it?
So in 2006, I was hired to start the Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance. We are a children's environmental health organization whose focus is healthy housing. So the best way I can describe the work we do is we get referrals for children who have been diagnosed with lead poisoning or asthma. We go into their homes and do a full-scale environmental assessment of the home, looking at things like lead, mold, radon, anything inside the house that might be making kids sick. We also look at things that might cause injury, so chemicals that are within reach of kids or lacking handrails on stairs. And then we also look at energy efficiency issues because the majority of the clients that we serve are living in poverty, so reducing their energy bills is pretty helpful as well. And we fix the house and basically keep kids from going back to the emergency room or from getting sicker.
Look, I want to tell the audience, there are real Americans running to represent you and actually be your representative. Just please take the opportunity to vote in primaries. So I'm going to give Kara's links here, eastmanforcongress.com. And if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook, the links are always super easy to click. They're down below in the description box or on YouTube or on a comment section on Facebook. And it's donations, it's volunteers. Volunteers make a big difference when you're not taking corporate cash. But Kara, before I let you go, one last question. You have something on your priority list that I have not seen in any candidate. You want to expand the small business healthcare tax credit. What is that and why?
Well, so right now I run a small business, and it's difficult for us to be able to provide health insurance. And we do it at Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance because it's the moral thing to do. We actually pay 90% of everyone's health insurance at my company. But this is another way that we can help small businesses. There are so many small businesses that say they simply can't afford to provide health care. And again, with an Expanded Medicare for All Act, we would take this off the table and free up a lot more of expended income and revenue for businesses. But I do believe right now that we need to be looking at our small businesses and making sure that we're looking out for them because we have plenty of people looking out for large corporations.
All right, Kara Eastman, running in Nebraska's 2nd District. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.